Welcome students. In today's session, we will learn the topics related to the output operations, input operations and simple program. So basically what this output input, sometimes we call them as a IO operations, input output operations. Now any C program, basically we are going to write, we will be writing certain C programs in order to solve the given problem, right? So it is going to process something. In order to process something, we have to provide some values as the input to the program. And once the processing is completed, the program is going back as the information, right? Those information, it has to provide it through the output operations. So basically, the input operations are something wherein a user or the programmer provides the data, that is input data, to the program for processing. And once the processing is completed, the program is going to give us back some meaningful information, right? Certain information, that providing that information back by the computer, we call them to be output operations. Okay, based upon these particular concepts, we are going to learn in detail how we can perform output operations, how we can perform input operations in C programming. Then the next concepts are very important. That is, whenever we write a program, we need to do the input operation or the output operation. So basically what actually we mean by the input and output operations are. Now, we need to provide certain type of input to the program to process. Once we give the input, then the program will do all the processing part and it will return back the output. So in order to perform this input and output operations, okay, there are certain functions associated with the in every programming language. So the first, let us understand the output operations. Okay, now output operations are basically performed using a set of functions. We call them as output functions. Every programming language has got certain default or the inbuilt functions. We call them to be a inbuilt functions in order to support the output operation, and such functions we call them to be output functions. Okay, what usually these output functions does, they try to print the information after the processing is done, right? Once the processing is done by the program, we have studied earlier input, process and output. So once the processing is done, the output has to be given to the user in a meaningful information, right? So basically they are used to print the information. Where do they print? They print on the standard output device. They print it on standard output device, that is nothing but the screen or the monitor. Okay, so if anybody asks you a question, or if a question appears, what is the standard in output device, then you have to say the standard output device is the monitor or the screen. Okay, so just to recollect here, what output operation? The output operations are performed by output functions. There, okay, then these output functions will basically print the information after the processing is done. Where do they print? They print it on the standard output device, that is the monitor or the screen. One example for the output function is the very well known function called as printf. How we should read it? Printf. Okay. Now let us try to understand what this particular printf function is. Okay. So printf function is, it is a formatted output function. Now you just see here the printf is there, that f stands for actually formatted. So it tries to print the information, where it tries to print the information on the standard output device, that is on the monitor or on the screen, in a formatted manner. We will understand what actually this formatted information is. Okay. This particularly, that is printf function, as I said, it is an inbuilt function, right? All the output operations functions are stored in or included in the function, one of the header file called as stdio.h. If you remember earlier, I had used something called as a hash include stdio.h, right? That stdio.h is what? It is a header file. In that particular header file, this printf function is included. Okay. Then The syntax again. The syntax means the rule, what the C compiler says in order to make use of this particular printf function. The rule is something like this. Printf, open bracket, okay, then open double quote, then you have format string, close double quotes, comma, variable 1, comma, variable 2, comma, dot, variable n, close bracket and semicolon. Okay, now as of now you may think that what this particular statement is, what this particular statement means, right? Now just be attentive here. Let us try to separate or divide this particular entire statement and try to understand it. Now we are trying to understand what a printf, that is printf function does. The syntax is printf. Now you notice here printf is there, then open bracket and then there is a close bracket and followed by a semicolon. That is mandatory. Within this pair of brackets what we are going to write, okay, that we will understand now. Here this entire information I can divide it into two parts. The first part is what? Within the double quotes from here to here, right? This is first part, followed by comma, and then second part is this one. After this comma up to the bracket. Okay, now first one, that is format string. What this particular format string consists of? Okay, it may contain three different things again. First is the constant string. Constant string we will learn later. As of now, string means it is a collection of characters. A single character means say A, B, C, or any special character or any digit. So these are what? Single characters. A collection of them, right? Like say hello. Hello is what? It contains 5 different single characters clubbed together to make it as a word, right? That what we call it as a string. So constant string means the string which will not change, the value which will not change there. So the format string, within this particular double quote, it may contain certain messages like a welcome. Okay, the values of A and B are some messages which are we want to print it onto the screen or the monitor. Secondly, it may contain something called as the format specifier. Okay, format specifier. Format specifier tells, okay, what? It tells the data type of the variables which we use in the printf statement. Pay attention here. The format specifier, it tells the type of the data which we are going to display in the variables, or what this particular any variables we are trying to display, what is the data type of that particular variable is. Okay, the format specifiers are something like a %d. You see here there is a 2 characters, %d. There is no space, it is continuously %d. If %d means, suppose if one wishes to, okay, if one wishes to print the variable of the integer data type, then %d has to be used. If one wishes to print the floating point numbers, that is fractional numbers, then they have to use %f. If one wishes to print a single character, then %c. If one wishes to print the variables of the string, a group of characters, then it is %s. In detail we will study later. As of now, just try to understand what format specifier means. Format specifier means it contains 2 characters basically, percentage and then a d or a %f or a %c or a %s. Okay, what it indicates? It indicates the type of the data of the variable, that is data type of the variable. %d means integer, %f means the floating point, it can be float or it can be even double, and %c, that is the characters, single characters, okay, more precisely, and %s, that is strings, a group of characters. Okay, then Thirdly, it can even also contain something called as the escape sequence. Okay, now here escape sequence, just understand that as I said earlier, there are two different types of slashes on the keyboard. One is forward slash, other is backward slash. So here we are using backward slash and N. Other is backward slash T. Okay, these two are, we call them as a escape sequence. We will learn this escape sequence later. Just to give you an idea what these are, slash N, that is backward slash N, means a new line, and a slash T, that is backward slash T, means a space width of a tab. That is, if you wish to print a tab on the screen, then slash T has to be used. If you want to print a empty line or a new line, then slash N has to be used. Okay, so as of now, just don't bother about these things. We will study all these things in detail once we start the execution, once we start with the programming concepts. Okay, so the printf contains two different things. I can divide broadly into two types. One is within the double quote. Okay, we are just discussing within the double quote. Within the double quote means it may contain these three information. It need not to contain all of them. It may contain the constant, that is strings. It may contain the format specifier, escape sequences. Okay, then secondly is the list of variables. What we call these var1, var2 up to var_n. These are nothing but the list of the variables whose value we are going to display on the screen. Okay, suppose if we are going to display a variable, say there could have been variable, say by the name n, of the integer data type. If I want to display, I can provide here n. Since it is an integer, then I should have been used the %d format specifier. Okay, now so basically, to just highlight here what a printf function means, printf function is a formatted output function. Okay, within this printf function, whatever we write, okay, that will be displayed onto the screen, onto the monitor. This printf function is included in the header file by the name stdio.h. The syntax is printf. Within the bracket, we are going to write certain content. That content is broadly categorized or divided into two things. The first one is within the double quote, comma, and then next the list of variables. It may be only one variable, or it could be a number of variables, or it is completely optional also. I will give the example here, try to understand here. Okay, the first example is printf open bracket open double quote welcome to C programming, double quote complete, bracket is closed, and a semicolon. Now if you notice here, only one part I am using, that is double quotes. Within the double quotes I have written some content. Okay, so this is, I call it to be a constant string or a message, in simple term a message. The other part, that is after the double quote, we had the comma and the variable name, that I am not including in this example. It is a very simple example. So what this particular statement does, it will just display welcome to C programming on the screen. Within the double quote, whatever text is there, welcome to C programming, each of these characters, the way how it is written, welcome is there, after that welcome there is a space, the space, then to, then space. The way how we write within this particular double quote, the same way it is going to be displayed on the screen. That's why we call it to be a constant string. This is one of the example. Now second example, if you notice in the second example, it contains one more additional part, that is after double quote is completed, there is a comma and then RNO. Now this particular RNO is what? It is something like a roll number. RNO is roll number. Now if you notice here, within the double quote, what it has, your roll number is, then there is something called as a %d. If you recall now what this %d is, it is a format specifier. What this format specifier says, in this printf statement, I am using a variable here. I want to print the value of this particular variable. Assume that if this particular variable, that RNO, is having 102 as the value, if this particular RNO is having 102 as the value stored, then this statement printf, this statement will print your roll number is 102. It will print your roll number is 102 on the screen. How it works basically? Now, your roll number is, as I said earlier, within the double quotes, whatever we write, it prints exactly the same way. Okay. Now, in this one, there is a slight change here. It is not displaying as %d here. Rather, it is displaying the value what this particular RNO variable stores. Right? So this is the advantage of using the format specifier. The format specifier here, it is %d. D stands for %d stands for the variable of the type of the data type integer. That means this RNO could have been declared as an integer variable. Okay, and it might be having 102 in this example, assuming it to be RNO contains 102. So that value 102 will get substituted at this particular position. When this particular statement is executed in a program, then what will happen? As we are assuming that RNO will be having, the RNO is an integer data type variable and it stores the 102 as the value. In that case, it is going to display your roll number is 102. This 102 gets substituted by the access format specifier here. Okay, this is another example. Let us see the one more example here. Okay, now pay attention here. Printf again. Now again we have two parts here, from this double quote to this double quote, one, and then after the semicolon, after this semicolon there are one more part. That means we are using again variables here. What actually happens here, as for the previous understanding, previous example, now value of A equals to, that will be printed obviously on the screen. After that we have a again format specifier, that is %d. %d format specifier means it is used for integer type of variables. So first %d is getting occurred. So in the list of variables, okay, there is a first variable. What is the first variable? A. So if the value of the A, assume if it is to be a 10, then the 10 will get substituted at this place. That 10 will get substituted at this particular place. Okay, now, and value of B equals to, again this is what, again it is a constant string, so it will print and value of B equals to as it is. Then again there is a second occurrence of the format specifier. Second time this format specifier is appearing here. That means again I am going to display the value of a variable of the data type integer, whose value in the variable list, the second variable, right? Second variable is what? B here. Suppose if the B variable value is 20, that 20 will be displayed. So when this program is executed, this particular statement is executed, it is going to print value of A is 10 and value of B is 20. Again, we are assuming here that A and B both are of integer data type and A stores 10 and B stores 20. Okay, now one more example. Printf total equals to %d, then there is something called as a /n here. If you notice, a /n, escape sequence. As I said earlier, escape sequence means /n means it is going to print a new line. Okay, now excluding this particular thing, what you can expect here? Total marks equal to %d. This %d means what? Integer variable. Format specifier it is for the integer variable. This is the first occurrence, so the first variable will be substituted. That is, whatever the value of this total is there, that total will get substituted over here. Okay, since it is an integer, how I can identify? It is a %d. %d means this total is a integer data type. Okay, then secondly, then after that I have a /n. I will tell you about /n later. Just now, Now next is percentage equals to, then percentage symbol and F is there. F means here again percentage F, this particular symbol means it is for format specifier for a floating value. So floating variable is what here? That is percentage. The second occurrence, that is so here total is a integer variable, PER is a float variable. So whatever the value it stores, that value will be printed. Okay, now slash n, coming to the slash n here. Slash n means it will print a new line, means initially total marks equal to whatever the total marks is there, that total marks will be displayed, assuming 521 here. Okay, then there is a slash n. Slash n means new line, means the next character, that is the percentage equals to whatever that percentage is there, that has to be printed on the next line. So what it has done, it has taken on the next line and it has printed. Okay, this is the way how this escape sequence, that is slash n, will be used. Okay, so I hope these examples are understood. I'm going to execute all these examples with, I am going to execute a simple program and I will cover up again once again the usage of all these examples. Okay. The second type of operations are input operations. Now we have studied the output operation, that is the once the processing is done, the C program is going to give you the information right on the screen. In order to support that one, we had studied output operation. In the similar way, if we want to provide certain data to the program for processing, right? If any data we are going to provide it for the program for the processing, then such operation we call it to be a input operation. We call it to be a input operation, right? So again, these input operations are performed using certain built-in functions called as input functions. Okay, then these are used to read the input values for the processing. Okay, as I said, the input values, if suppose if one wishes to enter or provide certain information or certain data to the program, then such values have to be given to the program by using the input functions. Now in the output, we had studied that the output will be displayed on the standard output device, which was the monitor. But here for the input operation, how are we going to provide the values? How are we going to provide the input values, which is the standard input device? The standard input device is the keyboard. We know that every computer will be having the keyboard. So the keyboard acts as a standard input device. If a programmer wishes to provide the input values to the program, then always those are provided through the standard input devices as the keyboard. Okay, one example for the input function is scanf. How this is read? Scanf. Again, you may notice the F stands for here. It stands for again formatted. Let's try to understand what this scanf is. Okay, scanf function, it is again a formatted input function. Okay, then it is used to read the formatted input from the keyboard, because these are the standard it supports the standard input devices, that is the keyboard. Okay, and again this scanf function is again present, or again it is included in the header file called as a stdio.h. You may notice here, as I said earlier in stdio.h, standard input output dot header file. So all the standard input output operations are stored in one of the file called as stdio.h. That H stands for, that is .h is a extension of the file. That extension H specifies as a header file. In that, compiler has all the input and output functions. Okay, now the syntax of scanf is something like this. Scanf, okay, again you can see a open bracket and at the end close bracket semicolon. Within that, again it has two parts again. First part is what? Within the double quote, format specifiers, then comma, and the next we have a list of variables. Not only the list of variables, but there is something, a special character, right? You may see a special character here, that is and symbol. This is what and symbol. As of now, let us try to call it as an and symbol only. Later, I will tell you the actual name of this one. Okay, in the later sessions. Let us not overload with the too much of concepts here. Okay, now what these two different parts, let us understand. Earlier we have seen in the printf, that is format specifier. Format specifier tells what? The type of the data of the variable, that is data type of the variables. Obviously the input are for what purpose? In order to store the values in one of the variables, right? Suppose that variable could be of different data types here. It could be for the integer, it could be for the floating point, okay, it could be for the single character, or it could be even for a collection, that is group of characters, right? Percentage d for integer, percentage f for float, that is fractional numbers, percentage c for single character, and percentage s for a group of characters, that is string. Okay, so in the format specifier we have to specify what type of data we are storing or we are reading from the keyboard. Second list, that is the second is the list of variables. Okay, it tells us the location where this particular list of variables are going to be stored. It is not only the list of variables, but it is the location or the address of those particular variables. The and, actually this and is a one type of the operator. We will study later. Okay, and is a type of the operator. What it tells the address of the variable. Address of the variable means it is something like for each of the if you want me to give an analogy here, every house has an address to identify its location, where that particular house is located, right? It has a physical address. In the same way, the variables which we declare in the programming language, those variables are going to be stored in the memory, right? Those memory is kind of a space where each of the variables will be stored in a particular region. That region has to be identified by a location. That location we call it to be an address. So this and where one in the sense variable one, and variable one specifies that the variable which we have declared in that particular memory location, you store whatever value I provide through the keyboard. Okay, I will explain in detail again with the examples later. So the syntax for the scanf is what? It contains two parts. The first is within the double quote, then comma, and then the next part is the address of the variables. It could be a one variable or it could be a list of variables. If there are list of variables, that is more than one, each of them has to be separated by the commas. Okay, close the bracket, semicolon. Again, semicolon is must. Let us see the examples here. Now, scanf, open bracket, within the double quote, percentage d, comma, and rno, close bracket, semicolon. Again, you may see here two parts. First is this one, second is this one. What is the first one here? That is within the double quote, percentage d. So percentage d is for what? Format specifier. It tells the type of the data, that is data type of the variable. So d stands for here for the integers. That means this rno is an variable. It is a variable of what data type? Integer data type. So whenever this statement is executed by the system on the C program where it is installed, if on the compiler, once this statement is executed, what it tells that it asks user or the programmer to enter a integer number. Suppose enter your roll number would be displayed. Now you are going to do what? You are going to enter that value through the keyboard, right? Suppose if you enter 101 as your roll number, that 101 is going to be stored where? The address of RNO. Okay, data type is what? Integer. So RNO would have been declared as an integer. So whatever we type 101 or a 110 or any number, integer number, that whole number is going to be stored where? The address or the location of the RNO. Okay. Second example. Suppose if we are willing to store, if we are willing to read more than one variable, say in this example, two variables. What are the variables? A and B variables. Now, by just looking at the format specifier here, again if you notice the scanf, there are two parts. One is within these double quotes and the other is after the comma of the double quote. The first one tells what? The format specifier, that is the data type of the variables for which we are going to read the values. The first is %d, that means the first variable which I write here, that will be taken as this data type, that is integer, and obviously the second one, second %d, again that is integer. So it will say, suppose it could be that you could have been asking the programmer, enter two numbers, first number and second number. So you will be expected to type two numbers, say first number as 10 and space or enter button, then second number as a 20. So 10 and 20 will be stored where? It will be stored in the address of A and address of B respectively. First number will get stored in the variable A and the second number will get stored in the variable B. Okay, that is how these scanf statements are going to be executed. Okay, I hope this is students, this particular concept, that is input and output operations, are understood here. Okay, the one more example here I have taken. Just see here. Again, it is having two parts. Obviously, how I can differentiate based upon the double quotes here, right? This is first part and that is the other after the comma is second part. First one is what? %d as the format specifier. Second is %f here. Now, %d means it is an integer data type, that is total is a variable of integer data type, whereas the second one, %f, that %f is for the second variable, that is PER here. So what is the data type? I can guess. Here it is a float. It is a floating point data type. Okay. Yes. Now, the simple program I have taken here to display some welcome message on the screen. Now, the first line, if you remember in the previous class, we have studied that there are, in the structure of the C programming, there are some optional sections and there are something called as a mandatory sections. The mandatory sections are what? The first one is the hash include, that is preprocessor statements, hash include statements, and the second is the main function, right? So those we have to mandatorily write. Okay, why we have to write? Because if you remember now earlier, in this main function we have something called as a printf. This printf is what? It is a output function where this particular output function is included or it is present. It is present in the header file called as stdio.h. For that particular purpose, we have to write hash include open bracket stdio.h close bracket. Okay, so it tells the compiler that it is going to, you look for this stdio.h file from the compiler and link into the at the time of execution or at the time of compilation. Then void main, we will elaborate what actually this void is in the upcoming session. So void main, and then there is an open bracket and a close bracket. Within that we have a statements. Now, as we discussed earlier, the program execution will always start from where? It always starts from the main function. So the program execution starts from the main function. Within this, there is a pair of flower brackets. So the body of the main function relies within these two brackets. Within these two brackets, we have studied that there can be two different sections again. Okay, the first section is variable declaration, second is the executable statement. Here we have not written any variable declaration. There is only one executable statement. What it is? It is printf, that is print something on the monitor. What that something? That something will be identified by what we have written within this double quote. So here we have written welcome to C programming. So when we execute this program on a particular computer where the C compiler is present, that time it is going to display as the output as welcome to C programming. Okay, yes. Students, in the next session, I'm going to cover up with the how actually we are going to type the program and how to execute on the system. Okay, that part I will be taking in the next class. So here you just try to memorize about the input and output operations. For the input operation, there is a function called as a scanf, that is a formatted input. In the same way, to print the information on the screen, there is one particular function called as printf, that is again formatted output. Okay, these both, that is scanf and printf, both are present in the header file called as stdio.h. Okay, I hope these concepts are understood, student. If there are any doubts, please put in the comments in the YouTube channel. Thank you, students.